how did you come up to getting this experience with words and why they matter?
Experience with words. I like words. Is that too simplistic? I'm fascinated by how language works and by how language affects perception. And probably about, 10, 15 years ago, I came across a school of behavioural psychology called Neuro-Linguistic Programming, NLP.
Oh yes, I know about that.
And it's there's sort of some weird American hand-wavy stuff that's around kind of they call it the study of expertise or excellence or something. But actually it's just a bunch of really, really good ideas that have all been kind of gathered together and given the brand of NLP.
So it's sort of a best practices?
Well, it's sort of it's contextual. So it's a bunch of really good ideas that all kind of overlap. So there's things about how rapport works, how you interact with people, how you can monitor, calibrate how well you're communicating, how effective what you're saying is being. It talks about learning models. It talks about how people absorb information and process information. And it talks about things like... Sorry, brain's just rebooting.
It's okay.
Trying to think what a good way to describe this is. So you've got how people absorb information, and also specifically about how the words you use affect the things you think. And there's a real kind of pop American management school stuff that says, like, we don't have problems, we have challenges, and we don't have challenges, we have opportunities. And But it's kind of, when you think about it, it actually does work. If you say, I've got this problem, then you're kind of stuck. If you say, well, I've got this challenge, a challenge is something you approach in a different way than a problem. And I found this when I was coaching, so I coach like this agile stuff. And I was coaching test-driven development, and I found that I was getting into all sorts of trouble talking about testing, because programmers don't want to write tests, because we've got testers for that. And testers don't want programmers writing tests, because that's what they do. Yeah. So, and it got into this real kind of, you're going down all these little rat holes of silly conversations about the value of testing and all this nonsense.
I'm curious, you changed the word test to what?
So I call it behaviour. So I say...
Oh, brilliant. Oh, okay.
So it's behaviour-driven development. So what we do is we describe the behaviour of a system in the form of a little example that's executable. You then write the code.
So then you can use it for usability testing and everything?
Absolutely, yeah.
This is behavior.
It's stuff the system doesn't do yet and should do.
Okay.
Then you implement the bit of the system that does it.
I know what you went through the Dreyfus model, but that's all very well. But if you have a lot of developers and you want to kickstart them and they're all thinking inside the box, how would you give us an advice on getting them outside the box to open the door, if you're using the same metaphor you did before here?
Okay, so we've got a lot of developers that are thinking inside the box. Mm-hmm. Interesting phrase. It says things like constraint to me, and limitation, those kind of things. What I would do, there was actually Claudio in his talk, he introduced a lot of really, really good ideas around creativity. Things like inverting assumptions. So if I say, right, as an organisation, as a team, guys, what are your assumptions about stuff around here? What are your assumptions around things you can't do? What are you not allowed to do? Well, we're not allowed to just release stuff into production. We have to go through a big process for that. We're not allowed to talk to the other team because they're in a different part of the organisation. We're not allowed to spend money without permission. Yeah, okay. And then so we get a list of these things that are actually constraints. They're the boundaries around our world, and we say, okay, what would it be like if? What if you could spend your own money? Yep. What if you could just put stuff into production? Yeah, it's not all just hooray, we're free, it's a revolution. It's like, what would that enable you to do, and at what cost? Yeah. What would be the downside? What would be the risk? Well, do you know what I mean? What would be the risk in doing that? Well, if you're allowed to put stuff into production, you can get stuff out into production much faster. Great. Downside, you're responsible for that. We've got a whole process, a whole team of people, a whole bunch of people whose job it is to make sure the wrong stuff doesn't go into production. If you want to take on that responsibility, with great power comes great responsibility. Sure. You know what? You're going to have to own that at some point. So it's the exercise of getting people to think what the limitations are. It's also then trying to understand in a systems thinking kind of way, where else are the levers around the team, within the team, elsewhere in the organisation that might enable some of these things, and at the same time be mindful of the potential downsides.
I think that's a brilliant tip.
Thank you.
So far, have you been enjoying Stockholm?
I love Stockholm. I've been to Stockholm a few times actually. I was here at Expert Zone Dev Summit last year. Yep. And I was here earlier in the year talking about lean and agile stuff. And yeah, I really, really like Stockholm. It was great.
Okay, thank you very much for your time and enjoy the rest of the evening.
Thank you very much.